So Cook Aquaculture started back in 1985. Father and two boys started with a small salmon farm in a little place called Kelly Cove, 5,000 fish. And the company has progressed. In 2004, we came into Maine. We have 24 sea sites in the state of Maine, 3 hatcheries, and a processing facility in Machiasport. And we're raising Atlantic salmon in the state. So we've been at it for almost 20 years here in Maine. We raise our salmon in the ocean. All of the salmon that we raise in Maine have to be indigenous to these waters. So we're only raising local Atlantic salmon. Salmon in Maine have been here for thousands of years. Maine First Nations communities knew of Atlantic salmon. Salmon was an important part of their culture. First settlers to the area were catching Atlantic salmon. So it's a fish that's been here for a long, long time. As we progressed, as we developed, Atlantic salmon populations declined to the point in 1948, the commercial Atlantic salmon fishing industry ended in the state of Maine. The populations were in decline, that they felt that they could no longer viably catch commercial Atlantic salmon. The life cycle of an Atlantic salmon is, it starts out in a freshwater river or stream, swims out into the ocean, comes back to the very same river where it spawned. And the difference between Atlantic salmon and Pacific salmon is it can do it over and over again. So salmon that were coming up the Kennebec, the Penobscot rivers in times gone by would do that many, many times. Our system replicates that in that we start the fish out in a freshwater hatchery. We have hatchery in Gardner Lake and a couple of Aquasic and Bingham in the state. Start them out in a freshwater hatchery. Then we take them out into sea. They're in the freshwater hatchery for about 18 months. They go out to sea for about 18 months, and we harvest the fish and process the fish in Machiasport.
Yeah.
So we harvest the fish before they get to maturity. So before they're ready to spawn, we harvest the fish. That's why you get the deep color that you have in the fish that you see before you today, that deep red color. So that's open pen aquaculture. So you can see some of the videos of what we have there. So we have enclosures out in the water that are nets that are moving with the currents and the tides. So our enclosures will be floating back and forth with the currents. Sometimes our tides are as high as 20 feet, sometimes 15 feet, moving back and forth with the current in the ocean. This is a technology that we've developed here in Maine and on the east coast of North America. It works well with our environment, with our systems.
So I understand that the Alliance investment into Cook Aquaculture was towards an innovation in the way that you feed the fish.
Yes.
And would you be willing to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we've done is we've moved to a centralized feeding system. So what would have happened in the past, we would have fed the fish, in early days, it would have been just with a scoop throwing the feed into the water. We progressed to having almost like a leaf blower type system blowing the feed into the water. Now we have a system that has a camera looking up through the enclosure, and on the surface of the enclosure, all of the feed is contained on this large central feeding system, and we have monitors in all of the enclosures so that we can see how the fish are behaving, see how the fish are being fed. It's beneficial for the fish because they're able to eat when they're hungry. It's beneficial for the people that they're not having to move around in different conditions on enclosures in cold weather and different conditions. So it's much safer for the people. And it's more efficient as far as moving equipment around and everything. It's a significant improvement over where we were in the past.
What I went ahead and did is I bought a full skin-on side here because, this is one of those kind of preferences. Some people like to eat the skin. Some people don't like to eat the skin. As a chef, I think it's nice to be able to cook the skin and make it crispy and make it delicious, and it certainly gives you a lovely presentation. But I've also taken the skin off. This to me essentially came from right here on this fillet, and this is your prime piece of salmon. This piece of salmon came from a little bit further down, essentially right there, and this is still a wonderful piece of salmon. This is what I would use for my barbecue or my pan-seared salmon or something like that. As I'll trim this up a little bit, and I'll go ahead and take this one off here. Andrew, you want to switch sides with me?
Sure.
I'll rotate to this side here.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll start out, and we're going to go ahead and take the skin off of this salmon. Actually, we're not going to take all the skin off. We're going to take a portion of the skin off, and we're going to leave some skin on this end. Now, a good sharp knife is a key piece of equipment for working with fish. And I like to use a slicing knife when doing this part of it. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and take off one nice fillet right here. And this is what I'm going to use for one of our preparations today. And so we have salt, pepper, and then a kelp granule that has a little bit of cayenne in it. This is a product from Maine Coast Sea Vegetables that I'm a big fan of. And so we're going to take these two, I believe you call them portions, our salmon here. We've got one that's skin on and one that's skin off. And when you're seasoning, you always want to have what I like to call a seasoning kind of, area, like a little tray or a little baking dish, something like that. And you want to season from above so that you can see the seasoning raining down and distributing evenly over the fillet. I think that's really important, whether you're seasoning chicken, beef, pork. Don't be afraid to be able to visibly see the seasoning on the food. One thing that's another great trick before you're going to pan-sear a piece of fish is to use something like a paper towel. I'm using my compostable paper towels here at the plant. And you want to just wick away any excess moisture right on the outside of that fish. And that's going to allow you to get the crispiest skin possible. You see, even though that looked pretty dry, I was able to attract a fair bit of moisture onto this towel. Now for this preparation, we're using a carbon steel pan. And we're going to start over a moderately, like a medium-low heat. We need a little bit less oil for this one. So one important thing, you can see I've got a little bit of smoke coming off my pan. My oil is shimmering. When I set this in, I'm going to set it in away from me. And the reason I want to set that in away from me is if it slips out of my hand and I splash hot oil, I'm not splashing oil on Andrew's nice work shirt and or on my nice chef coat. Okay, so those two have gone into the pan. So while those are searing, what we're looking for is a moderately low heat. We want to do this kind of crazy thing where we're going to cook this fish for probably 60% of the total time that we're going to cook it on one side, right? We're going to leave it right on that skin or right on that presentation side. And we're really going to sear it until we've got this gorgeous golden brown, kind of crispy, crunchy edge on it. And that's what provides that really awesome kind of textural contrast that's so enjoyable. And that's one of those things that is unique to salmon. You can't really do that as well with like a piece of cod or a piece of haddock or something. So you were talking earlier about how to tell when it's done. So you can see the fish is changing in color. You can see a little bit of the white albumin is exuding from the fish. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, and you can see I got a beautiful golden brown color on that there, and a beautiful golden brown on the skin there. And so I'm going to go ahead and go in with a little chunk of butter and use a French technique here called a rosier. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to let that butter kind of caramelize a little bit, and then we're going to baste it over our fish, and it's going to give that skin the final little gloss and shine. It's also going to allow our fish to finish cooking through nice and gently on that far side. I'm going to go ahead and take these out. These are adequately done for me. I like the salmon to still have a little bit of that lovely pink. So we've got some charred sweet corn. We've got a little bit of shallot, a little bit of basil, and then a blend of some different cherry tomatoes dressed with just a little bit of olive oil. And so this would be something that would be a very light, delicious dinner on a 97-degree August day like today. And then we're going to go in. I've got some, this is called borage, which is a lovely flower to grow for the bees and the pollinators. And we'll just drop a little borage in. And so we've got,
and what was this?
that's some balsamic, some reduced balsamic, just to add a little bit more acidity to it. And then on top, we've got a little bit of a pesto compound butter, and that's actually using scapes from earlier in the year with the garlic. So come on in, Terry. Oh,
It's over. Yeah, we did
Yeah,
that. I just want
passed
to
out.
Chef Rob and Andrew and our production help, Dusty, and all of you for joining us today.
Thank you for putting this together. Thank you for the use of
Thanks
this
so much.
facility.